There are three scriptures this morning. The first one, don't blink, you might miss it, is Proverbs 12:25. And it reads, "Anxiety weighs down the human heart, but a good word cheers it up." So I'll read that again just to make up some time. Anxiety weighs down the human heart, but a good word cheers it up. And if I were to paraphrase that long sentence, I'd say just be kind to one another. Good advice. The second is Philippians 4, verse 4 through 7. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. And Luke chapter 10, 38 through 42. Now as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at Jesus' feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her."
Morning. I'm feeling a little anxious this morning, actually, and I know it's about anxiety, so I've been over here trying to practice what I'm preaching. There is a sense of anxiety in the air. It seems to permeate through each day. When I talk to friends and mention how I'm feeling, the anxiety I'm carrying, the response is often a relieved sigh of recognition and a "yes, I'm feeling that too." I'm exhausted by the world around us. The hate, racism, vitriol, violence, the fight over what it means to be patriotic, the vile statements and lies, fear. Having a contentious election doesn't help much. There is so much surrounding us. I don't feel like I can make much of a difference because it's so big. My already normal higher state of anxiety is compounded by what feels like a tightening of my heart. Then there's a feeling, not always, but sometimes, that I don't know where God is in all of this. Anxiety is not my friend, but rather an unwelcome companion that I just can't seem to shake. I'm nervous. I know God is present in all of this turmoil, offering me ways to move through whatever has been triggered. But when there's too many days that I'm enveloped by the crazy, I become blind and too weak to hold on to what our Creator's offering. I do know that God is present, even if my heart has trouble grasping that. Anxiety is this umbrella term that covers a wide spectrum. Under it, you'll find worry, concern, apprehension, unease, tension, fear, angst, nervousness, being on edge, a foreboding, stress, misgivings, dread, uncertainty. That might cover it all. Maybe it's simply a sense that things are off. So if you felt any of those things, that's anxiety. I add to all of this now depression. Now, depression is often intertwined with anxiety. Sometimes it's a case of which comes first, anxiety or depression. Anxiety begets depression, and depression begets anxiety. You can feel depressed about your anxiety or be anxious about your depression. There is a name for the mixed pair. It's mixed anxiety and depression disorder, or MAD, which seems really appropriate. Now, I have anxiety and I'm bipolar and I spend a lot of time on the depressive side. but there's no fancy term for that, no acronym. I feel a little left out. Bipolar disorder and anxiety are just labeled coexisting. They're like roommates who don't get along. Let me back up a bit now. Our scripture readings include the story of Mary and Martha. I find their experience to be pretty universal. It's not an extreme anxiety, but it's one with which we can relate. We can make plans to have people over and we need to straighten up, or for some of us, we feel the need to clean the house, even parts we know they probably won't go into. I've done that. I read a meme recently that stated, "It's amazing how much you accomplish around your house under the threat of people coming over." It's true. I am always anxious to differing degrees when people are coming over. I've gotten better, but it's taken years. I no longer have the time nor energy for perfection. I forget that when people come over, they're coming over to see me or to see my family. They're not there to assess my home. We don't visit, hopefully, other people's homes and pass judgment. So why do we think that they do? Everyone experiences anxiety. Talking about it destigmatizes it. There are so many degrees and causes of anxiety. And not all anxiety has negative connotations. Normal, everyday anxiety can help us be more alert. It can motivate us and make us more cautious and not just jumping into everything headlong. It helps us to grow more resilient and allows us to be more empathetic. Sometimes it's a kind of excitement, like a marriage proposal or a new baby. It can be rather general. Maybe it's just a nervousness. Anxiety can be manageable, moderate or severe. Someone doesn't like surprises or feels anxious about conflict and they do what they can to avoid it. Kind of like that. Something happens at work or school, and there's tests, there's social interactions, national and international occurrences, political issues that definitely contribute. We see that daily. Trauma, personal and familial issues. Perhaps it's just a sense of uncertainty. Any of these can bring on anxiety to a lesser or greater degree, depending on the individual. We can sometimes talk our way out of it. Wouldn't it be nice if we could always do that with whatever level of anxiety that we're feeling? Maybe it's all about not wanting to disappoint someone. Maybe it's all about not wanting to disappoint God. You know, the Christian bumper stickers, God is love, the picture of the cross and the fish, Team Jesus, honk if you love Jesus. There's a new one, honk if you love Jesus, text if you want to see him. Anyway, even if I found a bumper sticker that I'd like, I would never put it on my car. I'd be too afraid that my human frailties would just shine through and help create a bad name for people who follow Jesus and love God. I generally don't talk about my faith, my often shaky faith, because I'm afraid I will fail God. For those who experience big anxiety, the excessive worrying, the catastrophizing, we can find it hard to breathe, to be still, to keep our voices steady. We often know that realistically, we can do little about some or even several of the things that trigger us. Even so, it's difficult to rid ourselves of that intense anxiousness. My greatest sense of foreboding is focused around my kids and their spouses, my granddaughters, my folks, my family. If someone's traveling somewhere by car, plane, boat, train, it doesn't matter. Even if it's as close as Colorado Springs, I want them to call or text when they reach their destination. I want to be sure they're safe. I know there's other people who also go through this. I think cell phones make it worse. It's easy to keep in touch, and so the expectations are higher. I'll keep calling, no answer. I can't breathe. My heart is racing, and you can bet I'm praying hard. It's a desperate plea. Then a simple call or a text breaks it up. My breathing slows. I can still myself. and I'm exhausted because of all the energy it took in the throes of a full anxiety attack. But I'm relieved. Fortunately, not all anxiety is that extreme, but even the lesser anxiety can keep us from doing things we want to. There are different coping mechanisms that can be developed to lessen our overall anxiety. It might take one thing or a combination. Each person needs to find the best for them and not avoid their anxiety. Avoiding anxiety just makes it worse. Many of the things we can do are things that we should be doing anyway for our basic self-care. Journaling, therapy, setting boundaries with people and activities, unplugging, being more self-aware. Learn your triggers so that you can protect yourself. When having an anxiety attack, breathe in and out slowly and practice the 3-3-3 rule. Now, you would think that I know about the 3-3-3 rule, but I didn't until I started looking at this. What it is find 3 things you can see, 3 sounds you can hear, and 3 body parts you can move. It can also help if we do a reality check. What's the likelihood that what you're obsessing over will happen? Some of us have very vivid and disturbing imaginations. God understands anxiety. We are in very good company when it comes to experiencing that tension. I don't think there's a book or chapter in the Bible that doesn't have someone dealing with anxiety in some way. From the story of Adam and Eve to the ministry of the disciples, so much angst. Think about it. Moses is clearly nervous trying to decline God's call for him to talk to Pharaoh. Why me? God tells him, it's okay, I'll be with you. Moses might start squirming a little bit. They might not believe me or even listen. I'm not an eloquent speaker, never have been. Couldn't you send someone else? Obviously, Moses lost that battle. Peter, sitting with a small crowd. It's a cold evening and there's a fire burning. He's already feeling anxious about Jesus' arrest. Someone points to him. You were with him. I saw you. Feeling vulnerable and nervous, Peter lies. That wasn't me. I don't know him. He does this 3 times with increasing anxiety and shame. The woman accused of adultery, brought to Jesus by the Pharisees. She stands there before Jesus and a large crowd. I'm sure she was feeling humiliation and dread. Try to imagine the level of anxiety she must have been holding. The Pharisees try to trick Jesus. The law of Moses says she must be stoned. What do you say? The woman's fear it intensifies. Jesus turns it all back on them. If anyone here has never sinned, go ahead and throw the first stone. They leave one by one, and Jesus sends her off with no condemnation. Esther and Mordecai, Ruth and Naomi, Job, Saul, the prophets, Mary Magdalene, and on and on. Seriously, anxiety to varying degrees is everywhere. That's because they're real people. They're like us. I think David was anxious with every other psalm. And the disciples, not knowing what Jesus might do next, probably felt, some unease at times. Everyone who came to Jesus with requests for healing must have felt a great deal of apprehension. Will he or won't he? Should I? There's Joseph and Mary throughout her pregnancy, childbirth, and visits from various strangers bringing gifts and a lot of sheep. Then they're told to escape to Egypt because Herod's looking to kill all the baby boys. These are not normal first-time parent concerns. From the moment Jesus was born through his resurrection, I have to think that Mary lived with some kind of shadow of anxiety. I think all parents do. And I think there are places where everyone does. We need only look to Jesus in his conversation with God in Gethsemane to witness deep anguish. His was an intense anxiety and sorrow unknown to most. My soul is overwhelmed. I am full of sorrow to the point of death. Can't you take this cup from me? We do have a source of support. The words of encouragement that we find in the Bible are strong, true, and hold hope. From Paul, the Lord is near. Don't be anxious about anything. Pray and let God know what you need. And God's great peace will guard your hearts and minds. David, cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. Peter, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And Jesus, remember, I'm with you always to the end of the age. I read them, I pray them, but sometimes it's hard for my heart to trust them. Sometimes it's difficult to hold on to them, to hold on to God when I'm in the midst of overwhelming anxiety. Anxiety in any form can mess with our psyche. I think there's times that we know God is ever present, and yet our world can create an anxious heart with which depression, frustration, despair, and lost hope can seep in. We can feel alone, but if we pause for a moment and consider what else is swirling around us, it just might sink in that we're not alone. We are not solitary. I know that I said it can be hard to hold on to God, but God will help us regain our footing and reset our course because our Creator never lets go. Never. God will hold and heal our hearts. So how does God hold us? What does God offer us? People. Those who know me know that I will always bring things back to relationship. God is present in each of us, and we share that presence with others. When we can't find the support in the words of Scripture, we can find it in the kindness of strangers, in the love of a friend. We can make real the sentiment and truth of scriptural encouragement. We are the tangible evidence of God's love and faithfulness. As I said earlier, everyone experiences anxiety, and we can allow for safe spaces to talk out what's making us anxious. A shared experience, thought, or feeling can bring some relief in a sense of somehow it'll be okay. We've got this, and we're in this together, and that can help us to let go of some of our moderate or intense anxiety and angst. It's always going to be a part of our lives. It's real, it's normal. And God is with us if we open our eyes, our hearts. Don't let concern over anxiety cause you to feel anxiety. Don't let it get overblown. It's not the boss of us.